Hello everyone! Today we're here in my home for the winter art demos. Since we're closed this week, we thought we'd bring to you some art demos online on our Facebook page here. So normally we're live every Friday, but for this week we're going to have a video every day at 1 o'clock. So today I'm here to do some progressive abstraction. So those who don't know me, I'm Ollie and I started working at Artbeat in the summer, and I do social media. So if you watch our lives, you've probably seen me because for those that are unfamiliar, Artbeat is a non-profit organization that works in mental health and art. So we believe in the healing power of art and how art can really be a practice of mindfulness and a chance to kind of focus and relax and heal as well. So it's a little strange doing a live by myself instead of being with Kate or anyone else this week. It's so strange, like not having someone talk back to me. But if anyone is live in the comments, you are welcome to comment back to me so I can interact a little too. So this week we're going to do progression abstraction. So that is also the art prompt that I posted on Instagram, and I think I did on Artbeat's Facebook as well. So what we're going to do is take an image and then draw it once more realistic, and then continue on and draw it more and more abstract. So this is a really great practice to learn to break down the shapes of whatever you're drawing, but also you can do it both ways, whether you want to start with the abstract and kind of look at the shapes and then progress to do more details, or if you want to start more realistic, like I'm going to do today, and simplify it and stylize it, so you kind of learn to simplify it however you choose. So today I have this picture. This is my bike. So I'm going to be drawing this. I actually drew a little one earlier to practice and see if I could actually draw a bike, and I think it turned out pretty well. But I think I'm going to change up the colors because it's like very brown and gray, which in terms of making it abstract might look a little bland. So first I have this lovely setup of an easel behind me. You're going to have to forgive the setup because I don't have a tripod with me. So I'm just going to be moving the camera. I have it rested on a teapot right now, which seems to be doing pretty well. So hopefully you can see well enough. I'm going to be using some oil pastels, so they're going to be a little more easier to see than if I was using pencil, and a little faster. So looking at this and trying to draw it more realistically, I said I'm going to change the colors. So first, kind of look at all the details. I'm really focusing on getting the right. I think people instinctively like to draw more realistically first, which I think is not a bad thing because it gives you a really good base for doing art and learning to stylize a little more. So while it might make sense to start with the abstract and build up to be more complex, doing the other way also has its validity because you can kind of really learn that base of like realistic shapes and then go from there. I'm just not super carefully, but kind of being a little more detailed with it, except I'm changing the colors a little bit as well. Like even as I'm drawing it more realistically, I am kind of looking at the overall shapes of things and the lines and doing it not too complex. So you can kind of see how one little shape at a time, each line. And I think it's nice to challenge yourself to do a little more colors. So I have a tendency to draw like what your brain assumes is an image, but even though I'm like changing the colors, like I'm not doing it too differently because the silver on the bike I'm using blue instead, but if you look closely in the image itself, it's actually reflecting the blue from the sky. So, you know, even though your brain likes to assume that it's silver because that's the color it is, it might not be exactly how it is. That makes sense. Yeah, it's really, art is a lot of observation, so it involves a lot of just looking and learning to draw what you see instead of what you assume you see. I think that's why doing exercises like drawing upside down can be really effective because it kind of takes out what you're used to seeing, and your brain, you can't assume as much what is actually going on, kind of forced to see things as they are. Mm-hmm. Because immediately I'm not doing super realistic, but somewhat I'm going for like the general form and all the details. Bit of a strange angle, but hoping you can see. I'll take it a little further along. Bring you a little closer. Okay. Come a little closer. You can see the drawing. It's a little wiggly and wonky, but generally I tried to get a more realistic image of it. You can see like the handlebars, the foot pedal, the little details on the bike itself. So what I'm going to do next, I'm going to put up another paper and deciding whether I want to base it off of my reference image, or what you can also do is cover the reference and build off of your own drawing. But just for the sake of this video, I'm going to cover that one up. Today I changed my mind. I'm going to take down my reference image and then put up a new piece of paper. And so now I'm going to reference my own drawing and simplify it from there. So immediately I'm going to try and follow the same shapes, but maybe with slightly less detail. Stylization is really interesting to kind of create your own version of things that can be more simple, but it can also, or to make it more like your own piece, but it can also be a way to kind of draw quickly and kind of, yeah, what am I saying? There's different ways that people stylize, is what I'm trying to say. So sometimes you can stylize things so it's, you know, in animation, if you drew every single piece of like the bike super realistic, it would take 1,000,000 hours, versus doing some stylization is a little more simple, but also has the benefit of creating a more unique and personal image. So I'm spending a little less time on this and using my drawing as a reference. So, but I'm still kind of following the general shape, maybe with less detail. I just realized I forgot to add the little metal, what's it called? Bike rack on the back. So instead of kind of working around those circles, I'm gonna more quickly. And once you take out those details, it kind of becomes a little more obvious, the shapes, like instead of detaching it for the color on the bike, I make it one line and you can kind of see how this forms like a triangle and all the shapes that appear in the image. And the back wheels, which are of course, as we know, circles. This is a little wonky here, but I'm not going to worry too much about that. Again, we're kind of simplifying it, seeing how we can break it down more and more each time. Let's see. Less about realism and more about focusing on what are the main shapes in this image. Like we have these lines on the bike are very clear and prominent, that when you simplify it becomes even more obvious the forms that are behind them. So then I'm going to cover up a more realistic drawing. Actually, I'll bring you closer first so you can see the fact that like still holds a form, still looks like a bike. It's a little more cartoonish, a little more simple, and really learning to break down those forms. Going through this really fast, apparently. Thought this would take me forever to draw, but you know, maybe we can play around a little more with it after. So from that, I'm going to break it down to the most basic shapes. It might be a bit of a jump, but you slowly can see like the more obvious shapes emerging. And then, so with the handlebars and the bike frame, it really has this triangle shape along with this kind of, what's the word? Trapezoid? Is that the right word? Something like that. Are the kind of base of the frame, and I feel like the most obvious is the fact that the wheels can be circles. So what I'm going to do is I can choose between whether I want to completely deconstruct this and have it all separate, or whether I want to keep it overlapping. So I'm going to overlap it just a little bit, so you kind of get that frame of the bike. It's still a little recognizable, not completely just shapes. Follow that composition. Can really simplify the bike seat into like a little square. Maybe I'll bring back that pedal over here with another square. And for the handlebars, really has like this very simple Y shape. Another circle around the wheel here, along with the kind of star shape of the spokes. And for the metal on the wheels, just do a simple half circle for the front and the back, along with a simple line for the back rack. And we've really really broken it down, but it's still kind of recognizable. You can see the original shape as well in the frame, everything. If you want to, you can break this into something a little more abstract even. I'm going to keep progressing here. It's still somewhat recognizable, I would say. Think more about the composition as well as the shape of the object we're looking at too. So where it sits on the page and figuring out what forms are most important. This is a useful skill to learning to break down in terms of if you want to do a quick sketch, especially to get an idea across, you can figure out what are the most important forms, the most important shapes that you can pull out to really express your idea, or to just draw. There's no right or wrong way, really. Just enjoy simplifying it. I'm knocking the paper down. I think it's very relaxing to kind of break things down to their simplest shapes. You don't have to have as much fine detail. It's still a good way to practice observation, because you really have to pay attention to what are the most important forms of the image. And so, the abstracted once again, it's not too dramatically different from the last one, but I kind of separated the pieces a little more, so you can really see the separation between all the shapes. It's not necessarily looking as much like one form anymore, but you can still see where I got the shapes as well. So, pulling back images, we can go back to the realistic one and see how the forms are really broken down into this bicycle. It's really rather fun practice that is just great for looking at observation and practicing those skills. And so, like I said, you can also start at the abstraction. And I'll bring back my reference image so I can kind of work. I'll stick it up here, maybe up and overlap a little. Going from breaking down those forms and then going back. This is my last piece of paper, so let's be a little careful here. Going back once you understand those forms a little better, and then going back to my reference image and thinking, okay, now that I understand the basic shapes of this, how would I be able to express it in a way that is still a little more detailed and realistic, but also follows those shapes? You see that where this triangle came from over here. So if I were to draw, still using the reference, but a little more detail, I have a bit of a better understanding of how the shapes come together, and then it can also help you process learning to draw from your mind, because you have those basic blocks in your head, because it can be really challenging, because you think you know what something looks like, but then you start to draw it and you realize, oh, I don't actually know how this attaches together or how this looks. It gives you the basic building blocks of like, okay, there's a triangle, a trapezoid, and two circles. That's the base of my bike. And then you build off of that to create the image. Of course, you can always use a reference. I love references myself, but you can't always have that on you for everything. Sometimes you just are on your own. Yeah, this is really good practice for mindfulness. Just focus on what you're doing, with the image in front of you. And even on a smaller scale, when you're looking at it again, you can kind of identify shapes more, where before I was looking at like the frame of the bike with all these details, I was looking at it kind of like, okay, it's this one large piece with a lot of details on it. I can now look at it and go, okay, so it's a couple lines, a couple shapes. And that makes it a little easier to kind of understand what you're doing, because it's all just a couple little pieces that you put together. Because, you know, drawing a whole bike can be a bit much, but drawing just a couple circles and a couple squares and a couple lines, and then eventually it'll turn into a bike. I know when I draw people, I always start with a technique similar to this, of like breaking it down into circles, like using the arms all as like little cylinders and the head as a circle. Really helps break it down and plan out my composition before I really go into those details. You can kind of see also in my original one, it's a little more messy because I was seeing things just like as little pieces of a bike, versus now I'm using the shapes that I interpreted. And so instead of thinking, okay, the wheel is shaped like this, I'm doing a circle and a little more carefully following that. reference this theory as much because I'm thinking of those forms and thinking, okay, we're going to do the wheels as circles. Might not be necessarily as much, like it might be a lot more stylized than the drawing, simply because I'm going a bit off on my own, in my own head, but following the shapes that in my head, I can draw this much easier. Okay, this is a circle, this is a triangle. So we're looking closer at the details again. This is my new one after kind of looking at all of the circles and the abstract form of it versus when I originally started and trying to look at the piece kind of as a whole and drawing it based on the image. So you can kind of see I used a lot more shapes, and instead of being this kind of shaky little bicycle, it has a bit more solid form to it and more identifiable abstract shapes. And going back, see through the process. Oh, it really does help you practice observing and learning to draw different things. So it's a good technique both practice different art styles as well as do some different, learn about different shapes and how to draw them. I went by this very quickly. I'd anticipated it to take me a little longer to draw these. And really see how I use the geometric shapes to kind of build a stronger image as well. So I can show you also an example of how I would use this kind of similar technique in how I draw people. So I've used up all my paper here, so I'm going to take some scribbly paper. Okay. Which one can I sacrifice? I'll take my abstract one and draw on the other side. So when it comes to drawing people, I use a very similar technique in terms of looking at those geometric shapes. So I would always start with a circle, whether I use it or not. That's the head. And then for the body, another circle, more circles, and then more like cylinder ovals for the legs. Do something fun with the hands. I don't know what pose they should be in. Fun feet. And it's breaking it down into those simple shapes, and it helps you plan it out and really make sure the forms are actually like not really proportional, I guess is the word. So you can kind of judge the size in relation to one another. Have them like waving. And then, I don't know what this arm is doing. It's on their hip. We're winging it here. And then going back in and doing details and kind of, this smudgy face, sure. Fill in the blanks with the neck and follow those forms until we have a real human. Use a little red shirt. This technique it's not necessarily the most, it doesn't help with knowing how to do the details, but it does teach you how to do the overall form of things, I would say. But it can be helpful in terms of like thinking of your image as shapes to understand. Like if you're trying to draw wrinkles on a shirt, you can think, okay, so it's triangular from where the bend is in my elbow, versus if I have it straight out, might be more straight lines or squares, often a lot of triangles and wrinkles, I would say. So those are kind of details that can help you understand and not assume what you're seeing. Let's see, continue with this person. And some blue pants. Basically coloring my little circles. And it's a little stylized. I do definitely have my own style with drawing people, but you can use this for drawing realistic people, drawing stylized people. It really helps plan out. I find it really helps plan out a composition, and it's about understanding the shapes. Especially with complex poses, that can be really hard to understand, and know what you're doing. You can plan it out a little, see what looks natural. Let's see where we are. Bring back my bike. See if I can draw a better person. That makes it a little more obvious. I'll use a pencil maybe. I'll draw the back on the back of my reference image. I really needed to bring more paper. Went through it a lot faster. If you can hear it, my dog is also barking downstairs. She says hi. I think it's a little more obvious when you probably can't see it as well, but when you use pencil, it'll be more obvious when I draw over top what the kind of details it helps with. I don't know where this arm is going, but waving again, I suppose. Just breaking it down into very, very simple forms. And it helps understand the shape of complex things. Marissa says hi to my dog. She probably would not be very happy if she knew a bunch of people were in our house. But you're not physically here, so that's okay. She said she means well. Let's see. Yeah, I went through that very quickly. I did not anticipate going through that so quickly. So, I can only see, I don't know if the angle has been right, but hopefully you can at least see what I'm drawing. I think this is a really fun exercise to do, not too, it's not too serious, and it really does help, like, learning observation and breaking down what you're looking at, so it doesn't seem quite as overwhelming when you're looking at a whole image in front of you. So I think that's where I'm going to leave it for today. I will see you all later. I think next Friday I will probably be joining the live. Not this Friday. That's when. Next Friday I will join in again. Hopefully with Kate, because she's been doing a great job teaching us how to paint. I think those are some of my favorite lives to do, is the painting as well. So, farewell, and have a lovely afternoon, everyone, and enjoy the holidays. Bye.